Who is it that knows the difference between thought and sensation? Is the mind discerning this in some way? Is the whole thing just a mental activity?
Yeah, so depends on what you call mind. So I could call sensation and perception also part of mind, but I separate thoughts from sensation and perception. And so perception would be sound, sight, then sensation is experience of the body, skin, touch, um, and then so temperature, pain, physical pain, and then thoughts in a sense is always a kind of reflection of that. So thoughts are made of imagined images, imagined sounds, imagined um, sensations, even. So emotions, you could consider them as imagined sensations. Um, Now, the question I think you're asking about, well, who is it that notices this and can notice the difference, for example, between thought and perception, right? Is that what you're asking?
The question is whether there is a knowing of this, or if it's just interpretation.
Knowing, when I use the word knowing, it points to something, but it's not an entity knowing. It's not a thing that knows. In a sense, the sound and the knowing of the sound are not two. There isn't a sound and that which knows the sound. There isn't a thought and that which knows the thought as a separate thing. There's the thought goes away. There's a sound, and there's just the sound. The challenge comes from when we abstract the knowing to be an independent thing. And so that's why in the meditation I was talking about emptiness. Emptiness in movement. So emptiness, in a sense, you could say the movement is what appears. So the sound, the sensation, the thoughts. And the emptiness, you could say, is what it's made of, which is nothing. But it's nothing in the sense that it's not its own thing with its own origin, separate from that which knows it. And so that which knows, the question is not so much who is it that knows, is what. And so sound is what sounds. But we often, and I also often talk about that which perceives or that which knows the sound, because it's a bit of a step to abstract first some form of difference. Because when we're identified with thoughts, it's good to see, well, I cannot be a thought because I'm aware of the thought. And so there's no way that I could be something that is also appearing. But that's just the first step. Same with the sounds, same with sensations. But then you can see that that which appears to be knowing or observing isn't a thing that is separate or independent. And the mind can understand some of this, but it's not important. What matters is something can be seen that breaks the identification. It severs that mechanism where no longer identification can happen. It can happen in a sense like it can be another appearance, but it becomes very obvious. Like I can address you as Nicholas, and I can speak as if I am Nicholas, but it's not deeply my experience. It's just a way to talk. But then if you ask, well, what am I? I don't know. The direct experience of I is emptiness and aliveness and not located and not separate from sound, not separate from sensation, not a perceiver of sound. Just sound appears, thoughts appear, sensations appear, choices appear. And there's also this sense of infiniteness, but infinite starts to point to something like there is something that's very large, and that's not real. In a sense, it's like what happens if you collapse infinity into a point, or if you have both at the same time, where there is no dimension, no size. I'm not sure if I'm able to answer your question or if I'm answering, but this is what comes up.
Yeah, it's becoming clear that I don't understand. There's no way I can build a bridge to anywhere. I understand your words and you're pointing that the sound knows the sound and the seeing sees. But I can't get to what you're pointing to.
But let's look at it more simply, or more focused. Just one thing. There's a sound. Now, the appearance of the sound is total. It does not need an entity that hears. The entity that hears is an assumption. And it's a thought. And so you could just notice that. Same with the seeing. So you could consider the seeing and the seen. So there's forms, images, this, and then are you sure that there is a need for a seer for that to be seen? Or is
I don't know how seeing works. There just is seeing, immediately.
yeah, but don't think about how it works as in the functioning. Look at your experience and your intuition of your experience. What feels and seems more deeply true. And I can propose two options. One is there is that which is seen, and then that which sees. I'm not talking about the functioning of the body. I'm just talking about the experience. So the experience right now is seen, and then let's take the option where there is that which sees, which you can call I, in this in this assumption. Now the other option is there is that which is seen, and that's all there is at the level of seeing. Let's just focus on perception of sight. Does there need to be a seer? Or is the seer a thought, an interpretation?
Are you asking me that?
Yes, it's a contemplation. Which one of those two feels more accurate to your experience?
It feels accurate to me that there is only seeing, and then thought is added afterward. The seer is just a thought.
And seeing is happening, the seer is happening, but it's happening as a thought. It's an image I hear seeing.
Yes, and it's a thought.
Yeah, and it's a thought, yes. And so this is not something you need to understand. It's like you can go to the river as a 2-year-old, touch the water and know it, have the experience, not understanding what this is, not understanding any of it. But you know there's water, you know it, you touch it. And so this is what I'm trying to point to is the experience that you're having right now, that is happening, to touch it, to look at it. In the experience, is there a seen and a seer? And if so, what is the seer? Is it a thing or is it a thought?
It is a thought.
Yeah. It's not a mechanism that sees. The seeing is independent, is free from a need of a seer. The seeing appears and it's free from the need of a seer. The thought appears, it's free from the need of a thinker. Yeah. The hearing appears free from the need of one who hears.
It always appears, and then it subsides.
Yes. And there's no need for it to be one way or the other.
And any story or understanding of how the appearing appears, is that just the mind? So I can just ignore it.
Yeah, or have fun observing the story. Because you ask me, how does all of this happen? It's like, I don't know. It's a big mystery.
And that is already our nature.
Yeah, and it's one nature. Your nature is not different to my nature. Now, Jay's nature is different to Nicholas's nature.
I don't know.
Fair, yeah. I'm just saying at one level, the nature of an apple and the nature of an orange have at one level a difference. But at a deeper level, it is the same nature. It is nature itself. It is aliveness itself. It is. And that's where there is no two-ness.
But when we say the mind has no answer, the trueness of this common nature doesn't come from the mind. The mind doesn't know that.
No, the mind doesn't know that.
But when this is known, it doesn't come from looking for it. It comes naturally, doesn't it?
Yes, you can't get to it because that's what you are. So it's like a fish trying to understand the ocean. But in that metaphor, the fish is somewhat separate from the ocean, but it's like a wave in an ocean trying to understand water. It cannot analyze water because it's what it is. It cannot separate itself from water, from the ocean, to look at the ocean. What can happen is kind of the reverse. The all of the energy placed to try to be separate, all of the energy the wave is investing to be separate from the ocean can kind of fail and give in, and then it is just ocean. All of the energy placed into being separate from the seeing, the seen, the perceived, the others, to be limited by the body and be separate, all of that energy can drop. That effort. And that can happen spontaneously, or it can also happen through a process of seeing. The seeing that there's no point. And then also the seeing that there really isn't anything that you can really identify with. In the meditation today, I was speaking to that. The more you see that everything is fluid and there are no things, then the mechanism of attaching to things gets undermined. It's like if you're trying to catch the river in your hand, at one point you realize that just can't happen. There isn't, obviously you can do this, but in the metaphor of turning it into a thing, like a rock, but it's water. Every time you do that, it's an effort and it's a failure. And that's suffering. The metaphor of trying to identify with something. But it's all a fluid thing in motion. And when that efforting stops, it can stop spontaneously, or it can stop because it is seen that there's no point. Through a form of understanding, a non-intellectual understanding. And then what can happen, the way it's can be experienced, is that usually we experience sounds, sensations, perceptions, thoughts, and we, using thought, create two layers. One is inside, and inside is that which perceives, that which sees, and the other layer is that which is seen, perceived. So there's a sound, there's the naming of the sound, and then there's the placing of the sound outside over there, and that which perceives in here. And what can happen when that is seen, that there's all of that efforting, that can slow down and stop. And then what can happen is it's as if the seen, the heard, the sensed becomes the inside. And then all of the interpretation, that layer, in a sense, dissolves or becomes part of that same, it's just thought. And so sensation, perception, and sound, sensation, perception, and thought all become just this very clear, without that pushing, the sense of pushing the seen outside, the seer inside, the heard outside, the hearer inside. Which is actually always your experience. There is just the interpretation, the mechanism of putting the heard outside, the hearer inside. One way to see this is, if you look at something or you hear something, it's easier when you look at something. You could look for the thing you're seeing and that which sees, that which is experienced as the perceiver. And so, for example, you can look at the screen and look at that which perceives the screen. Find that, and then do a back and forth, and then try to see what are you referring to when you find the seer. And you'll notice that the only thing you can refer to as a seer is either a sensation or a thought, which is also the sensed or the thought. It's not the sensing nor seeing. But this ping pong between the seen and the seer is going from perception, which is not out there. We're not seeing something out there. And in fact, somebody who has more of a scientific mind can understand that all of the representation of this world is created by the brain. And so it's internal. You're not seeing something out there. You are seeing an image created by a brain. You only have contact with the image created by the mind. It's not something out there. Same with the sound. Then the mind creates an imagined space and projects the sound as if it's occurring over there, projects the image as if it's occurring over there, and imagines a seer, which is seeing the scene. But there's just the scene, and if you refer to something as a seer, you're going to thought, you're going to a sensation. And all of it is it's the same, it's appearing in the same field, not separated from anything that appears. Time itself is appearing in the same way. It's just the way the mind interprets change and then uses memory to create a map of time. But change is just movement, which everything is always moving. There isn't ever anything that's not moving. And that's why, again, trying to capture the river in a fist. Once it's seen that everything is moving, you cannot capture it, then you stop trying. First you freak out because you realize, or you have the sense you're going to die, because all you ever thought you were is that little bit of water you're grasping in your hand. And then when you realize you just can't have it, there's a temporary panic, often a pain, and then a release. A release into, oh, I was always just the river. I was always the ocean. There's no need to grasp. It was always just this everything appearing empty, full, timeless. Without a real beginning or an ending. And then the body mind can really settle into that